Or anyway, the book, number one on Amazon already, Profiles in Corruption. We have it featured on Hannity.com. Peter Schweizer is with us. He wrote the book Clinton Cash. He has been in the forefront of exposing this corruption. Joe Biden, you first did this. How long ago was your last book where you exposed Biden and Hunter and Ukraine and China?
Sean, it's great to be with you. That book came out in March of 2018. We did a show and an interview, and we showed that Hunter Biden was a conduit for large sums of money from foreign interests who wanted favors from his father. And that was in March of 2018. Shortly after that book came out, we started researching this new book, and we built upon the foundation of what we found about Hunter. We found not only more stuff related to Hunter, other businesses he had set up that took in hundreds of millions from other foreign entities. We also found 4 other Biden family members who profited handsomely off of Joe Biden's tenure as vice president. So
and we bragged about it.
Yes, and they bragged about it. It's the Biden 5, we call them. And I have to be honest with you, Sean. I've exposed a lot of corruption with Republicans and Democrats, both sides of the aisle. I have never seen a circumstance where it is such a family affair as to where you have 5 members of a family who are profiting this way off of government service.
Well, this is what the New York Post had, how 5 members of Joe Biden's family got rich through connections. And you go through all of it. And this now takes us around the globe here. You talk Russia, Ukraine, China, Latin America, and elsewhere, correct?
Yeah, that's right. For example, if you look at Frank Biden, Joe Biden's brother, he, during Joe Biden's tenure as vice president, is involved in 2 projects that takes in $54 million in U.S. taxpayer loans for energy projects in Costa Rica and in Jamaica. He sets up this energy company after his brother becomes vice president. He has no background in energy. He has no background in Central America. He has no background in any of these development plans. And yet he piggybacks off of his brother. Joe Biden visits Costa Rica in 2009. Shortly after that, his brother Frank is meeting with the Costa Rican president and other government officials. The same thing happens in foreign countries. So it's a pattern. It's a consistent pattern. It's not just Hunter, it's basically the entire family.
It's unbelievable. Now, what do you make, and maybe you can explain this to me, because remember, this was all supposed to be about a quid and a pro and a quo with Donald Trump. Aid was never discussed on the call with Zelensky, not one time. Now, corruption was discussed. The president saying, well, I hear you might be hanging out with the same guys as your predecessor, and that's not a good idea. So the president clearly was worried about American tax dollars going to a corrupt new administration. Now, the 5 subsequent meetings, high-level meetings with the administration officials, including the vice president, not once was aid ever mentioned. Zelensky and the foreign minister, there's no influence, there was no quid pro quo. The one fact witness that we ever heard from, Ambassador Sondland. Now you got, how is it the Democrats and the mob and the media can ignore you're not getting the $1 billion unless you fire the prosecutor that he knew was investigating his zero experience son who's being paid millions? How do they bifurcate, compartmentalize their brains that way? Because I can't figure that part out.
Yeah, it's because there's different sets of rules for different people, Sean, and you know that as well as I do. And, look, I'm one of those people who thinks it was entirely legitimate for Donald Trump to raise the issue of the Bidens with Zelensky on that telephone call. And here's why. The media hasn't reported this.
His job is to faithfully execute the laws. What Joe is doing is law-breaking.
Yeah, exactly, Sean, but even more to the point, President Zelensky has just been elected in Ukraine. Who is his chief backer? Everybody acknowledges this. His chief financial backer is a Ukrainian oligarch named Kolomoisky. Very, very corrupt guy. Kolomoisky is reportedly involved with Burisma. So you have a new president coming in of Ukraine whose chief financial backer is involved in the Burisma scandal to begin with. Of course you are going to pointedly ask him in a phone conversation, I'm asking you to look into this. You're basically...
I want you to do us a favor.
Exactly.
Not me, but we had spent 3 years on election interference. And, yeah, Biden, being paid millions, the son, and by the way, he's not a kid, he's 49.
Right.
and admitting he's only getting it with no experience because of his father. His father's in charge of the money, and his father's using taxpayer dollars to shake down Ukraine, to fire a prosecutor. And Adam Schiff declares Biden's innocent and the prosecutor's corrupt. Well, I'd like to hear from the prosecutor.
You're exactly right, Sean. I mean, look, all of these issues that have come up about collusion, about Ukraine, applies in this particular case to the Bidens. There's money flowing to them not only from Ukrainians. One of the things we reveal in the book is that Hunter Biden's involved with a company called Burnham. He and his business partner brags that they have a $200 million deal with a Russian oligarch named Yelena Baturina, who is widely reported in the West to be tied to Russian organized crime. There doesn't seem to be any media interest in that. This is the son of the sitting vice president who's doing deals with these kinds of individuals. You have similar deals with these unknown Chinese companies that seem to be tied to the Chinese government. You have Kazakh oligarchs. They're all throwing money at Hunter Biden, and he has no background in private equity or in any of these areas, and there's just a complete lack of curiosity by much of the media in even looking into that. It's just there's a different set of rules for different people as far as the media is concerned.
And the Bidens are the worst, but you also go into detail about Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders. Let's focus in on Warren and Sanders as they are the top-tier candidates at this point, but also Amy Klobuchar. Explain Bernie. Explain Elizabeth Warren.
Well, Elizabeth Warren's an interesting one because she basically has a three-layer cake of entangling deals that should be concerning. The first one involves she herself. A lot of people know that she did legal work for corporations. She made a lot of money, millions of dollars doing that. What people don't realize is that she made that money, Sean, because in the mid-1990s she was hired by Congress. She was paid by taxpayers as a consultant to rewrite a very narrow portion of the bankruptcy law. And what did she do after she was paid by taxpayers to do that? She went to corporations and said, pay me large sums of money and I will help you get around this law. And that's basically what she did. She was hired by Dow Chemical, by Anderson Worldwide, a whole host of companies. So that's Elizabeth Warren's, I think, corrupt behavior. It's the oldest game in Washington and a very corrupt one. But then on the second layer, you have her daughter. Amelia Tiagi, who in 2007, 2008 is setting up a business company called BTG. They're having trouble raising capital. Well, lo and behold, her mother is being recruited by Harry Reid to head up the TARP bailout, to be the chairman of the TARP Oversight Committee. When the meeting takes place for that to occur, Elizabeth Warren's daughter shows up. And what happens, Sean? Elizabeth Warren, as the head of TARP Oversight, is involved in the bailing out of large Wall Street firms. Who are the companies that come to finance and advise the daughter's business? The same firms that are being bailed out by the committee her mother is overseeing. It's this sort of crony-cozy relationship that Elizabeth Warren always talks about, how opposed to it she is, but she then acts on it. And then the third level, Sean, there's a lot of mystery and I think a lot of concern here. This involves her son-in-law, Sushil Tyagi. He is married to Amelia Tyagi, her daughter. He is originally from India, met the daughter at Wharton Business School, but he has a series of international business deals he's involved in. One of those involved a company called Tricolor Pictures that he set up. It was designed specifically to make movies with the financial support of foreign governments. One of those deals, Sean, was doing a film that was financed by the government of Iran. And when you look at the credits of that film, he's the sole producer of this film. The sole producer. The government agencies that funded that film are the government agencies that organize a lot of the anti-Semitic, anti-American rallies, cultural rallies in Iran. And in those film credits, by the way, Sushil Tyagi's film credits, in those film credits, they actually thank the Iranian Revolutionary Guard's Air Force for their contribution to the film. It's really quite astounding.
Unbelievable. All right, stay right there. This new book is blockbuster. This is not something we can fully inform you about in the course of one segment on radio. We'll ask him quickly when we get back, Peter Schweizer, about Bernie Sanders. And Peter will join us tonight on TV. He'll be back later this week on radio with us. It's up on Hannity.com. It couldn't be any more timely. Profiles in corruption, abuse of power by America's progressive